Grandma, can I have the chocolate chips?
This secret recipe moment made possible by Emory Heart and Vascular Center. When Grandma needed heart care, she came to Emory. The difference? Emory Healthcare performs more heart procedures annually than anyone else in Georgia, which means better outcomes for our patients. And we offer advanced and personalized treatments developed by our top specialists that others don't. Like Grandma knows, where you start your heart care matters. Smart Cookie. EmoryHealthcare.org/smartcookie.
What you listening to, son?
Howdy, y'all, and welcome to Talking of the Hill, where God has a plan for us, and it involves puppets. I'm your host, Selfish Bull All-Star Bob Mackey, and this is the Talking Simpsons Network's chronological exploration of King of the Hill, who is here with me today.
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and I've come down with a case of the why me's.
And today's episode is Meet the Manger Babies.
You're a good man.
Man?
Today's episode aired on January 11th, 1998, and as always, Henry will tell us what happened on this mythical day in real-world history.
This is Hank Hill with the news.
Bobby, Half-Baked is released in theaters, Marvel vs. Capcom 1 is released in arcades, and since this is such a football episode, in the AFC Championship playoff games, the Denver Broncos win, and they will go on to Super Bowl 32 in 2 weeks and win that as well.
I have that in my notes because I was wondering how close this was to Super Bowl Sunday. Of course, it did not air then,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, it did. No.
And I think Fox had the Super Bowl at this point in time, right?
I think so. The next year in '99 would be when they debut Family Guy and not Futurama.
Right.
So I think unless it was traded around years, I think they had it this year as well. Yeah.
And would you believe that I've never seen Half-Baked?
Oh, seriously?
Yes.
Never, man.
Yes.
You
I was
used to
not
be
into
a real ganja man.
Yeah, I was not into drug culture ever, but I didn't really understand it when I was 16. I did not have none of my friends were smoking weed. I didn't actually encounter anyone in my life that smoked weed until my mid to late 20s.
I actually didn't either until my, let's say 19 or 20. I didn't smoke a doobie until, actually it was a bong that I got high off of, but.
That's a bad first time to smoke anything out of a bong.
I know. I was like, no, light it for me. Oh, I spilled this is what you did. It took like 2 tries. So embarrassing. But that's why I was like, can you just give me a thing I eat? But nobody I knew could cook their own edibles back then. They didn't know. But
now
yeah.
we have stores.
But I saw Half-Baked because I was properly advertised to on Comedy Central about the film. I don't think I knew Dave Chappelle that well as a comedian even then. Like it was, I think his first big special was like the year after that, like Killing Them Softly. But I think I probably saw it for Jim Brewer because I was like, yeah, good old Jim Brewer.
Boy.
Yeah, the Goat Boy. Finally, he's got his own show. So unlike most people who watched Half-Baked, I actually saw it in the theaters. It was for many people a DVD thing, but I saw it in a very empty theater in Florida with my mom.
With your mom?
With my mom. Well, because I wasn't old enough to go alone.
See.
Like, so she took me and my brother. There's definitely filthy jokes in there. A lot about prison rape in that movie.
And Bob Saget being dirty for the first time that anyone could remember.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, finally, Willie Nelson could be open about his weed smoking at last. Yeah.
And music by Alf Clausen. One of the few non-Simpsons things he did during The Simpsons.
That's cool. I always forget that bit.
It was like this, and he did the music for the Bette Midler sitcom that went nowhere. That's basically it.
That Half-Baked, look, it's fine. It's a good movie. I also just think of Half-Baked because when I saw Mitch Hedberg open for Harlan Williams.
Oh, right.
I've told the story before,
Jeez.
but yeah, when I saw Mitch Hedberg, I went there to see Mitch Hedberg, but he was opening for Harlan Williams, so we were sticking around, and this was at a college, and every fucking person was just screaming like, do the Half-Baked line from it. Harlan Williams is not a good comedian, so it was only making the night worse. Like,
I hadn't thought of Harlan Williams in years, Henry.
Yes, I think we've brought him up before, and people have said like, well, the reason you don't hear about him much is that he actually got really rich off a kid show, and he doesn't need to do anything else.
That's for the best.
Yeah.
That's for the best. And Marvel vs. Capcom 1, correct?
Yes, yeah.
I like this one, and I think I like it more than the second game. Controversial opinion, but I do like in the first game how everyone gets their own backgrounds, their own levels.
Yes.
In 2, they're just like random ideas you can fight in.
No, somebody who cares about Marvel history, when they don't go basically anywhere that's based on Marvel, instead it's like, well, that's just a circus. Like, oh, a circus. But gameplay wise, the speed of Marvel's Capcom 2, I played it way more than one.
Me too.
As a kid.
For this one, for me, it was growing up with the NES. I was like, oh, Mega Man's in a fighting game? That's really cool. Mega Man can fight Wolverine? Neat.
Yeah. Oh, man. And all the picture of just the pixelated, it was like the last time Capcom did truly great pixel art for something. I guess really Street Fighter 3 maybe is the final Darkstalkers, but the MVC games were basically the end of it. And yeah, that when we're talking about this, I'm hearing "Want to take for a ride" in my head, which is the next game, not the first game.
Thankfully. And yes, this episode, shockingly, this is the last episode of this run of Talking to the Hill. But guess what, buddy? It's the first week of June. We got your money.
Yeah.
You got owned. I'm kidding, of course. We appreciate all of your support. But,
and you're going to get more great stuff this month.
Yes, of course. Monthly Talking Futurama is on the Patreon, and another miniseries coming in the fall. So please don't go anywhere. We've got lots of great stuff for you and new surprises all summer. Who knows what we'll do next?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this is a fun one to end with because it is Luann centric, and I just rewatching season 2 really solidified for me that Luann is like one of my new favorite characters on the show. Like I still think I like Bill the most, and then Bobby after that, but Luann, there's just so much beneath the surface with her that they can just explore with.
Yeah, I think Bill does get all of the dumb jokes, and Luann gets a few, but they come from a sweeter place.
Yes,
and I do like exploring her as a tragic character, which this episode really gets into.
Because you just want to hug her. Like Bill is pathetic, but you don't, like, he also kind of pushes you away because he's like, not only is he pathetic, but he's also whiny. But meanwhile, Luann, the way Brittany Murphy plays her, like multiple times in this episode, that she is confused and lost, and that makes her sad. And you're just like, oh, I'm sorry.
And it's also, we talked about this on the Halloween episode weeks ago, but it was also a different time in America where things were becoming more secular. This is before, the war on terror and George W. Bush being a born-again Christian, being the president. And it was interesting for a show to be like, no, let's look at religion sincerely and not mock a character for being religious like The Simpsons would do, which is fun. Those jokes are funny. It's funny to make fun of Ned Flanders, but the show is not saying, oh, Luann is stupid because she believes in God.
Yeah, and that Luann, like both in this and Halloween, one of her only outlets for like a life that is her own is her church, the way the church is portrayed here, it's just a small town boring church. There's not even like a repressive jerk in charge or anything. It's but God, just Luann. Everything she says in this episode just makes me laugh so much. And this also, for an episode that is sort of about the politics of making television, that it's not too in your face with it. Like, Poochie is one of the funniest episodes of TV ever, but it's right in your face of like, this is how Simpsons is made. We're talking about our show.
It's very, very subtle. And I do like what they do with it here on different levels. But this episode begins, it's a Super Bowl episode, of course. And unfortunately, Hank's TV is on the disabled list. And the dark truth he tells Bobby is that America, the greatest country in the history of the world, no longer makes TV sets.
Yeah, I love that even though he has to admit that Made in USA is not true for any television in 1998, he still will not say that is a defeat of America or that it's not the best country in the world.
And he will not buy a Japanese TV set.
He refuses to. Do you think he would be more ready to buy, say, a TCL TV from China or a Samsung TV from Korea? Is it just that it's Japanese or any foreign television?
I think it's any foreign one, but I think he knows brands like Sony are foreign. Maybe if they cover it up, because this made me think of... I talked about this on when I first got on Retronauts, and people thought I was making it up. But you probably had this experience too, in that there was xenophobia about Japanese things in the 80s. And that's why Sega kind of skirted past their whole Japanese past, because families I knew, well, when there was a Japanese car on the block, you'd be like, oh my God, they bought a foreign car. What's going on there? And then a family that I knew, which were kind of like the Flanders, is they weren't allowed to have Nintendo because it was Japanese. So they bought a Sega. And I at the time, I didn't know Sega was Japanese, but later I found out, I was like, that family, they totally got swindled. They bought a Japanese console. They didn't even know it.
If you told them that, they'd be like, those tricky Japanese, they got us again.
They schemed their way into my house.
I think too, I definitely saw that growing up, though. My dad, for all his opinions on things, he actually didn't seem to care much about buying Japanese. The car we owned my entire life was always a Honda. When I was born, he had a Honda Accord, and if we got a new family car, it was a Honda model. So my dad was not so against Japanese things.
Yeah, Hondas were just starting to get cool in the late 90s, early 2000s, and that was a turning point for me. I was like, I thought people told me these cars were bad growing up, but now everyone is driving a Japanese car.
If I ever buy another car, it's going to be a Honda, baby. That's Honda Fit. That's the one I've been eyeing if I ever had one. The fact on Japanese or television's not made in America, you're going to hear me say a thing. I don't say much. Donald Trump was correct. But in 2016, so I was looking up how many TVs are made in America, or are any ever. No, they are not. But this came up. My source was a PolitiFact article, which the point of PolitiFact is to exist and to call Donald Trump a liar. But in 2016, in one of his many rambling, old crazy man speeches, he's like, America, we don't even make the TVs anymore. Sorry, I hate giving you his voice. But PolitiFact was like, well, is this true? And then you're like, yeah, it is. There's two companies that call themselves like, oh, we're an American-based TV company. And in both cases, from their investigation, they either are shipped televisions directly from a factory in China and they put them in an American box, or they just get parts made overseas and assemble it here. But nowhere in America, apparently, do they manufacture the parts that are used to make a television.
That makes sense to me because we don't make anything anymore in America. All of our jobs that are not essential jobs are made up. It's just like, well, I'm assistant executive brand manager.
Well, and I say this as a person who bought a big TV that's much cheaper than it used to be. Americans mostly don't want to buy something that would cost what it would cost if you paid an American to make it, because we like how things are cheap. We don't want a thing to be expensive.
It's true. I do remember, this is an example I always think of all the time, is that the fabled Papa John, the great pizza magnate,
Yes.
He proudly said that if he gave his employees health insurance, it would cause the price of pizzas to raise a dime, and he wouldn't do it.
He refused to. Where does it go from there? Yeah, it's that's the different story. The opposite side of it was that Costco guy. I've heard him talk about it on the podcast, right? Of like one guy who owned Costco. He was told by other people, like, we can't keep selling the hot dogs or pizza this cheap, and he's like, it is key to Costco that we have this cheap thing. If you find a way to make it work for $1.50 hot dog,
it gets them in the door.
Got me in the door.
Yeah,
got me in the door.
I do love Hank's just utter disgust for Bobby when Bobby says, "Can't we just buy a Japanese one?" He goes, Bobby, go to your room.
And not even, Hank is so dogmatic about it, he won't even buy a foreign-made part that would go inside his TV, because he'd know it's foreign-made. Like that, it's the gentle xenophobia of Hank that he can't. It's not that he distrusts other countries, it's that he loves America too much to use other countries.
He doesn't want a part of America to die.
Yes, yeah.
So while Hank is being sad about his TV, Luann is sad about other things.
Hello, Buckley. What? Of course not. We could go to the outlet stores next week. It's not like they're having a sale or anything. They have everyday low prices. Why are people so mean, Aunt Peggy? It's been 2,000 years since Jesus was born, but we're still acting like cavemen.
Oh, honey.
Peggy, we're going shopping for the Super Bowl party, not your feminine items. Diet soda?
Hank, we have got a situation here. Luann has come down with a bad case of the why me's. Come on, just do something to cheer her up, please.
Hey, Luann, me and Bobby are heading over to the Megalo Mart. You want to go for a ride?
Is it okay if I don't feel like talking?
Sure, why not?
So again, the insidious megalomart is working its way into every episode, as we've been talking about this season.
That's right. You know what? That Hank should take some of the blame. You know why Made in USA doesn't exist anymore, Hank? You're going to the Megalomart and paying Megalo prices.
I'm sure because we don't see them there, they put that line in for that reason. It's just like Hank is lamenting about the state of America, but then he's going to Megalomart to go shopping.
Well, that is the power of the actual big box retailers, because like a few brands scream heartland of America more than Walmart, but everything you get in there is cheaply made thanks to exploitated foreign labor, like overseas labor. Not even overseas, like Mexico too, but also that line, oh man, it's been 2,000 years since Jesus was born, but we're still acting like cavemen. Like that, cavemen and Jesus like 2,000 years ago, but cavemen, it's so funny.
It's a good line.
And the sad, oh man, this is when from the first scene, you want to feel so bad for Luann, because like
she's just sitting on the curb in a dress, and they were going to go have fun at the outlet malls.
She put on such a nice dress, and she's not sitting in a chair. She's like, no, I have to be. I mean, also, I think she's sitting on the edge of the driveway because Buckley will not pull his motorcycle any more into there. He's like, nah, I'll pick you up on the curb.
And again, something I like throughout the season is characters repeating things they hear on TV or saying they have everyday low prices.
Oh, you're right. God, I love that. Also, again, poor Luann, she's a good Christian girl who gave it up for Buckley, and he can't, they're having casual premarital sex, and he can't even do one weekend trip to the outlet mall with
Buckley
her.
doesn't know how good he has it. Luann is hot, Buckley.
Yes. Oh my God. She is 5 levels of hotness above Buckley. This fool, he deserves to die. I'm just going to say it, that Buckley.
As we mentioned before, these have some deleted scenes on the discs. And I noticed that in the deleted scene on these episodes, they're cut out because they make Hank look like an asshole.
Oh,
so in this one that is cut out of the episode, it's implied that Lady Bird was going to ride with them. So Hank has to tell Lady Bird it's a false alarm. And then he tells Peggy, drive her around the block, would you? I can't do everything around here.
Oh, man.
So because Lady Bird can't go with them to Megalomart, Peggy has to drive Lady Bird around the block in her car.
That shows, that I do like Lady Bird jokes of Hank, who is, wouldn't baby his son like this, but for his dog, he's like, please, just drive around the block, my poor dog.
Lady Bird is so missing from this season because all of the Lady Bird scenes are cut.
Yeah, I guess, in season 3, they start figuring out some things for Lady Bird, but you're right, they're not really interested in her in this. I also love that joke that you think Hank is setting up to say, I don't know, tampons or something, but a feminine item is diet soda. He would never, no man in Hank's mind would drink diet soda.
So they're in Hank's truck on the way to Megalomart, and Luann is lamenting about the state of the world, and clearly she's been reading Weekly World News because she's saying, look what's happening. Aliens are getting autopsies and devil babies are being born every day.
That's so good. I also love how much she looks up to Hank. Like, it's an early coding of, I think the point they're making with her in this episode, like in so many others, Luann had no good father figure growing up. She is now super interested in Hank and is searching for like, could you tell me I'm good kind of thing. And that also I think is why they write her to have crappy boyfriends like Buckley, because she just thinks like, well, men in my life exist to treat me poorly. Like, or at the very least, that's the psychoanalytical reading they are putting on to Luann.
I mean, there's a reason that she sees Hank as God.
Yes. Yep.
And so Hank points out, it's up to every one of us to make the world a better place. He says, take me, for example. I sell a clean burning, energy efficient fuel. And then when Luann is just searching for something in her life, she's like, do you think I could do that? And he starts laughing.
Oh, that's so mean of Hank to just be like, well, no, obviously you couldn't do it. No one could do. My job is way too hard. I also like too that she just says like, you're right. You're usually right. Like, yeah. And then Hank has to bring everything back to bragging about propane too. That's so good.
And so we swerve into a garage sale where Hank finds his deflection coil made in the USA inside an old TV on sale. Very convenient for Hank.
He has to find a dead man's TV. I figure that's what he usually does. Of like, well, somebody died, so they're selling their old TV. Let's see if I can scrap it for parts.
And he goes, with this in our set, the only thing beyond our control is the size of the NFC victory. So
yeah, so I looked into that.
Thank you, because AFC, NFC, I've heard these terms. I barely know what they mean. I know they're conferences.
Yes, yeah. There's there's one group of teams that's in the NFC and one group of team that's in the AFC. And then the winners of those championships face each other in the Super Bowl. And
the Cowboys?
The Cowboys are in NFC.
Okay.
Yeah. So, well, that's the funny thing. This also, Cowboys football is important in this episode, but in 96, they had just won the Super Bowl, but now the Cowboys weren't doing as good. But, and please, football person in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but from my research, in 1998, they were coming off of the NFC winning 13 straight Super Bowls in a row. The AFC team never won. But then in 1997 and in 1998, 2 weeks after this episode airs, that's when the Broncos start winning and the AFC actually starts having a reign of their own. So Hank's joke is inaccurate this month of him doing it.
Maybe he's hoping for a comeback,
I think so.
So in 97, the AFC won, right?
The AFC won with the Broncos.
So this is probably written right after that.
Yes, yeah. But so it's and apparently at this point, if you're to count all total Super Bowls, it is virtually tied. I think one has won one more Super Bowl than the other. So,
and we are starting to get Bill is disgusting jokes in this episode. They're starting to bring that in, and there's a deleted scene where they point out how much more disgusting he is, and we'll get to that soon. But Bobby wants to know why they can't just watch it at Mr. Dotrieve's because he keeps snacks in his couch cushions. I hope Bobby is not eating those, but I think he is.
I think so. I think that joke, especially when Hank explains the order of doing it, I think based on Bobby's age, that was the first time he got to go to the Super Bowl party, and it was at Bill's, and he ate things in the couch.
And then Hank points out that another disaster that happened was Boomhauer's dip was too thick.
Yes, yeah, and it snapped. I like Hank has no empathy for Joe Theismann. He thinks of him as a man with weak bird legs.
Like potato chips they are. And this is when Luann knocks over a box of animal puppets and the Manger babies are born.
My name is Luann. What's yours? I'm Mr. Cat. Meow, do you do?
You're pretty good with those.
I used to play with the puppets all the time with the social worker.
Hey, how much for the puppets?
You mean it?
Well, if it costs 25 cents to make you smile, it's a bargain.
Look, Dad, an old wig.
Bobby, take that off.
I'm not saying it was a miracle, Reverend Thomason, but I don't usually trip into boxes. I think God has a plan for me, and it involves puppets.
Luann, I like the idea of a Christian puppet show, but try to see things from my perspective as the spiritual leader of this congregation. We just laid new carpet in the activities room. You put 30 kids in there and lose their attention. Fruit punch all over my new carpet.
I like Maurice LaMarche in these kind of muted roles.
Yeah, he's so great. What a great bit of such a calm reverend that he's not saying puppets would demean the message of Christ or I'm trying to be serious. These puppets aren't good for it. He's just like, I just spent, $2,000 on new carpet. If a kid spills on it, then it's ruined forever. I just can't do it.
And actually, before this scene, there was a deleted scene that was not on the final episode, and that this is where Luann gets her idea to entertain kids with the puppets, because we see her at the beauty academy, and she's trying to sweep up hair, but all these little kids keep running through it. One is shoving it in his mouth, and she uses the cat puppet to tell them that eating hair is wrong and God doesn't like it. And then she starts coughing, and you think she's doing a bit where the cat is hawking up a hairball, but really she's choking on the hair that's in the air.
Oh man, that's good. That's
where her idea comes from to entertain the kids with puppets. So there should have been a scene before that where she's actually at the beauty academy, which she technically still is in, but we rarely see that in this season.
Yeah, that's an important. It is kind of, without it is an A to C move. They give her the line of her saying like that she said it was a miracle. She found it as, I guess, why she's like, oh, because this was a miracle, I came to you, Reverend, with it. But it's better to see it done casually in person. But I guess this is a packed episode.
Yeah.
It's hard to cut anything.
There's a lot going on, but I do love Luann's pitch to the Reverend, like, baby Jesus was born in a manger. No reaction from him.
Yes, yeah.
Setting it up. And her idea is that these animals that witness Jesus' birth, they're adventures that happen afterwards.
Yes, yeah. Her pitch is what you pitch a TV show with, like how she comes in with this pitch and the Reverend pokes holes in it, is like, well, the animals kind of disappear and never show up again in the thing. And then then for a bad pitcher of a TV show, that thing from an executive, you go like, oh, well, I guess I give up. But Luann, she is on the ball. She's like, even better, because what happened to them after that? People would want to know. They're just waiting around like us for Jesus to come back.
They'd have all sorts of crazy adventures.
Yeah, I love that. I also, that when she discovers the puppets, that line of like, I used to play with puppets all the time with a social worker.
Yeah.
Oh,
a lot of therapy, a lot of like past experiences are coming out with these puppets, especially Joe Sixpack, because there was a history of drinking in her family for sure.
Yeah. No, what's also cute about it is that Luann doesn't realize how all of her inner demons are coming out through these. Her personal feelings are coming out through the pet. Manger baby.
And there's a deleted scene in this, or deleted tag on this, where maybe it's like a bit too on the nose, where Luann straight out says, like, these puppets are my chance to do good in the world. So reflecting what Hank said about what she should be doing, or she should be trying to do.
That's a good line too. I kind of wish they kept that. Now, a lot of the spirit of this, especially Mr. Cat with the meow stuff, that's Mr. Rogers. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, okay, so I really love the Luann logic that goes into naming all of these things and giving them backstories. So there's Reginald Featherbottom III, which is the penguin. It's just like, the very proper British penguin.
Yes.
There's Obadiah the donkey, who just like makes donkey noises and talks. There's the cat that talks in cat speak, like Henrietta Pussycat from Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
And then there's an octopus that just says gurgle, gurgle. For some reason, the octopus can't talk.
The octopus came in the box, so she's like, well, and an octopus, because it was in there. And also like the Christian puppet show thing, the local Christian puppet show thing is such a constant of American small time TV too.
Yes. And to me, nothing is unintentionally funnier than Christian puppets. As a big fan of found footage, nothing is funnier than getting those really funny clips of Christian puppet shows.
I will say there's some found footage ones where I can't watch them because they make me cringe too hard, and mostly it's the Christian ones that do it. Yeah. And that also, I don't think she realizes the implications too of like how you're fucking with a kid's head to have a puppet that they trust say that God something is a sin and you'll go to hell. But yeah, her with her puppets is just so funny and sad that she's just so excited the second she has this creative outlet. It also shows that Luann, just like how she is amazing at car repair, can just rebuild an entire engine on her own, she also can be a fun performer who likes having just silly voices and everything.
In our next clip, she'll pitch this idea to the family.
I call it the Manger Babies. We're headlining next week in the activities room.
Manger babies. How do you like that?
This is going to be a great show, Luann.
I know, but now I've got so much work to do. I have to write a script, build a puppet theater, learn to talk without moving my lips.
If you want, you can make a theater out of that old refrigerator box in the garage. I keep it pretty clean.
Oh, Uncle Hank, thank you.
Hey, who said that?
So I like Hank being supportive, and I also like the joke about him not just having an old box in the garage, but also maintaining the old box.
Yes, yeah.
So he's cleaning his old boxes.
Most people would throw away that refrigerator box, but he kept it, but he also is cleaning it regularly. And such great, like, Southern dad, positive energy, like, how do you Manger babies? How do you like that?
And there's another deleted bit in here where instead of Hank, he goes, who said that or whatever? He's kidding around with Luann. He's being supportive of her. In this deleted scene, he's kind of a dick once again, where he says, sorry, Luann, but I got Super Bowl fever. The only cure, one Super Bowl. So he's like just got Super Bowl in the mind, so he's not even being supportive of this idea at all. He's just being like, I only care about the Super Bowl. So that's what's going on in his mind.
I'm glad they made that change, because it works better that he is very supportive of Luann until it comes into contact with the Super Bowl. Then that supersedes it. It's better that instead of him saying throughout the whole time, like, whatever, Super Bowl's coming. Whatever's happening with you is meaningless to me. I also love just the pride that Luann has with such a dumb name as Manger Babies.
Yeah.
And they're not babies either in the they're adult things.
I guess they were babies once when it was important.
And also her just great. That again, the late Brittany Murphy doing silly voices in her Luann voice is so good.
And she clearly doesn't care about not moving her mouth when she's on stage anymore.
Oh, I mean, I could deconstruct the whole thing, but the way her performance is such a great joke about performance, because the point of doing puppet shows is to hide the artifice of it. And she stands up. They make the puppet box for her to be able to go below it and be invisible and just have her hands up.
You know what? I never thought about that, because I've just seen this so many times. I take it for granted that, oh yeah, on Manger Babies, Luann is just with them.
Yes.
But instead, she has a puppet theater, and then at the end of the first act, she sinks down into it when she doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, and she even takes off the puppet and puts it on in front of the audience. Like she has none of the knowledge of, what professional puppeteers do, but that's part of the fun of her, that there's an innocence to that.
In the next scene, she's building the puppet theater, and this is the scene that is ripped from Mike Judge's Life, The Origin of Mr. Anderson and Hank Hill, where it's her wanting to do something and doing an okay job at it, but then deferring to these middle-aged men for help, and they just immediately rush at the problem and take over completely.
I love the bit of all of them just like itching there, like going like, when is she going to ask for help so we can just build the whole thing? Because they respect someone else building stuff, so they wouldn't take it away from them, but if you ask for help, they will then take over. Like that, they're just such handymen. I also, what else I was thinking of with her and her puppeteering was our friend Paparina on his Knickknacks videos for Sherry Lewis, when he covered the career of Sherry Lewis. I was like, oh yeah, this is, a beautiful woman with her puppets. And especially, I mean, Obadiah is not too far away from the horse character.
Charlie Horse.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to look up that video, because I didn't know about her like Las Vegas act with Lamb Chop.
Oh,
and
man.
She was a gorgeous woman too.
Yes, and her with Lamb Chop is so funny. And on her shows, all the excuses she had to be like, how do I hide my elbow? Like, how do I make it? And she, unlike Luann, could throw her voice very, very
really
well.
Yeah. So, we're at Arlen First Methodist, and the Reverend wants to remind everyone that spilling juice on the carpet is a sin, in case you missed his sermon. So he brought this up in his sermon as well.
Which I don't know, that's in the Bible, but it'd be very expensive to clean that brand new carpet.
And finally, we have the Manger Babies intro.
Once upon a time, almost 2,000 of years ago, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ was born in a manger. And in that manger lived the cutest little animals. This is their story. After Jesus left, King Herod came, demanding firstborn sons. He cast an evil spell on them, freezing everyone. Years later, I bought a nativity scene at a yard sale second hand. They came to life and then, amen, I met the Manger Babies. There's Obadiah the donkey, he says, yeah. Hosea the cat, meow, meow. And octopus too, gurgle, gurgle. But let's not forget a very British bird, Sir Reginald Featherbottom III, charmed, I'm sure, governor. They are the Manger Babies getting in trouble. The Manger Babies spreading God's message of love. Manger Babies. Manger Babies.
There's a lot to talk about here, and I like how they just let it play for the audience, but what I like about this the most is how quietly sacrilegious it is. I almost say sacrilegious whenever I say sacrilegious because of The Simpsons.
It's a funnier word.
But just the background story and how, I guess, factually incorrect it is, because it's after Jesus left, King Herod came. I think she says King Harold. After Jesus left, King Herod came, demanding firstborn sons. That happened before the birth of Christ.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
It actually didn't happen, but according to the Bible, King Herod heard that this Savior was coming, this Messiah was coming, but he's like, I'm the king. Round up all the firstborn sons and kill them.
Yeah.
That happened before the birth of Christ, but it actually didn't happen.
I mean, that story makes Christ's divinity more clear instead of just like, no, it's a mash together of people who were messiahs at that time. And but yeah, it's that she's like, well, where do I pull this from? Where do I get the magic that makes them freeze? King Herod, yeah.
Yeah, so instead of killing the firstborn sons, he freezes them, and that's how Luann finds them in a nativity scene.
I love that. She found him. I really love how much he's created the compelling backstory that they have been frozen for almost 2,000 years. She bumped into them. She's like, they came to life, and then, amen, I met the Manger babies.
And the clumsiness of her pitching to the kids what the show is about says, like, Manger babies getting into trouble, Manger babies sharing God's message of love, Manger babies... No verse.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, it's God. And all her poses, like she turns around and turns back, and she has all this like energy, but like, clumsy energy to her. God. And again, like I said, never goes out of sight, just always there, because I think too, she's happy. She's like, I want to see all the people in the audience. I'm here for them.
And meanwhile, Hank is distracted by a nail he left sticking out of the puppet theater.
I love that. That's almost like a comment on TV creators too, because like when you make something, you only see the flaws that nobody else notices, and it starts driving you crazy. It
reflects poorly on my craftsmanship.
And also, the only other people who notice it are insiders who are like, oh, man, okay.
All the other men were disapproving. Let's hear the Manger Baby sketch.
Today's episode, going to the movies. Who wants to go to the movies? Yeah, I do. Yeah. Uh-oh. There are 5 of us, and I only have 4 tickets. One of us blokes could sneak in. What? Count me out. Is it sneaking wrong? Yeah. Everybody's doing it. Yeah. Gurgle, gurgle. Okay. Let's go. La, 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 la. We're going to the movies. La, 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 la.
Yeah, but it reflects poorly on my craftsmanship. That's all I'm saying.
Hank, you're the only one who notices.
Here you go. 4 tickets. But there are 5 of you. You were trying to sneak into the movies. You Manger babies are in a lot of trouble. I'm locking you in a closet. No! And that's why you shouldn't sneak into the movies. The end.
There's so much stuff I love about that. Luann clearly new to storytelling, but I love how when characters need to go somewhere in her stories, she actually has to reflect the amount of time they spend. So she's like, la, 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 we're going to the movies, la, 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 la.
It's good cover for a cut to Hank getting lines, but just her in the background like, la, 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 la. To think that these kids who have terrible attention spans, they're watching her with puppets go like, la, 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 for like 20 seconds.
And how again, I love how low the stakes are for all of this, but the Manger Baby's great scam is to get one person into the movies for free.
Yes.
And then to be like, 5 people for the movies. Wait, there are only 4 tickets here. So their scam is awful and stupid and not thought through at all.
A terrible writing on Luann's part. And that, just ends with them locked in a closet and she's getting notes live. I also have to think.
Yeah, me too.
Luann was locked in a closet for punishment more than once in her childhood, and that's why such a specific punishment is done to the Manger babies, which that is an extra dark layer on top of that she's like, oh, the Manger babies, well, what's the worst punishment that could happen? Well, a thing that happened to me when I was like 8 by an abusive parent.
I just like the idea of a movie theater manager locking you in the closet.
Yes,
as a punishment.
Not that, that the movie theater guy would throw them out, like he wouldn't, or say like, you're banned from this theater. But she can't think of that. She just thinks, well, they'd lock him in the closet like how I was punished as a little kid.
And the storytelling is not working on these kids because they're getting very bored and they want to know what happens next, and she cannot improv her way out of the situation. And they ask if they got out of the closet. She goes, "Sure, I guess."
Sure, yeah.
And they want to know how, and she's like, "How? How?" And she starts crying. And the act break is her like just sunk down in the puppet booth crying. And meanwhile, Hank has moved his way up to the front row to get rid of that nail or do something with it. But
try to push the nail in with his shoe, like that's his plan. plan.
The sight of him in the front row with all the kids is very funny.
Yeah, I love that. I love this giant man like sitting in front of all these children, and also the cut to the Reverend seeing the kids like getting bored, and the one little fat kid he's been staring at the entire time with his cup of juice. He's like, oh, that's good.
Just give them the juice before the show, right?
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, it's his fault for letting juice be served. Like, you're in charge here, Reverend. Don't serve juice.
There is an alternate scene in here, again, that makes Hank look like a dickhead in that so Hank moves to the front row to presumably take care of the nail. In the deleted scene, he kicks the nail in, and in doing that, he startles Luann and she loses her train of improv thought.
Man.
So in a way, Hank causes this to happen.
Oh, these are good edits.
Yeah.
Hank should I much prefer in this episode that Hank, they've done 2 episodes already in the show of like Hank doesn't want Luann around and he's mean to her. They're finally past that. It's like they reconnected twice now.
Yeah.
One in a twister, one when he made her move out. This time, just let him be nice to her, you know?
It's good that they take out these scenes of him being worse because it makes him a much better character, even if he is a dick later, you know?
Yeah. And also very inventive act break that it makes it seem like it all happened in real time and she like started crying and now it's just been like murmuring in her box, audibly brainstorming what the next scene could be.
And we come back from the break and Luann is still trying to figure out how they got out of the closet. And meanwhile, Hank is trying to tell her, Jimmy the lock open with a coat hanger.
Yes.
And she doesn't understand. And meanwhile, Hank decides to come to the rescue and save her story.
I'll save you, Manger babies.
You will?
Yes, 'cause I'm the assistant manager of this movie theater. I sell popcorn and popcorn accessories, and you are fired.
We're free! Thank you, assistant manager. Meow, can we ever repay you?
By never forgetting this lesson, sneaking into the movies is wrong. As wrong as spilling juice on a new carpet.
Bravo! You know, Luann really shouldn't waste this kind of talent on church. If you want, I could show her tape to my boss at Channel 84. He's always looking for quality children's programming and home videos of things blowing up.
Well, Luann really could use a boost right now. But I could not take advantage of our friendship like that, no.
Oh, Peggy, honey, this is show business. That's what friends do.
Yeah, I really like that they cut out the nail scene because it makes it seem as if in this final cut, Hank is doing this because he doesn't want Luann to screw up.
Yeah.
Not that because he caused the screw up to happen.
Yeah, it's not that he feels guilty. It's just he feels bad for her that she's looking so embarrassed and in front of all these people, and it's being filmed by Peggy. It almost seems too creative for Hank to like improv a character, but that he makes it basically himself, but with popcorn.
He has no imagination. He's just like, I guess I could be another assistant manager.
And you know what? He should fire that guy for locking children in a closet. That's above and beyond.
There is a deleted scene in which Luann is trying to make the scene go on longer, where after he fires the clerk, he says, Luann goes, "What about my wife and 7 kids?" And he goes, "Luann, like, we're clearly done with this."
Oh, that's great. Like Luann's trying to play. That's funny. I also love Nancy just saying like she really shouldn't waste that kind of talent on church. That's such a great line. And yeah, this is more about show business, that it is who you know and cronyism. I mean, Greg Daniels, I think he's a great writer, but how'd he get his first job in SNL? Well, he was a Harvard guy, and Harvard guys worked at SNL.
All the Harvard connections.
But he's probably Greg Daniels might be the best writer of that Harvard crop, I think. Like based just on pure writing and ability. Yeah.
Based on what he's made since then, yes, for sure.
At the very least, the most productive. I mean, you'd say his old co-writer Conan was pretty high up there too, but Conan didn't become. I guess he writes even when he's hosting the show. He's like, yeah, I'm making something up, and that's him being creative. But Daniel's like more productive than Gene, Reese, Jeff Martin, all those guys.
It makes me think, I don't know if I mentioned this before on the show, but if there will ever be an Office reboot, because Steve Carell, I love him. I don't think he's a movie star, and especially after Welcome to Marwen, let's rope it in, pal. Come back. Be Michael Scott.
And that whatever that dumb politics movie was that Jon Stewart wrote and directed.
Oh, like Irresistible or Irredeemable or
no,
whatever?
It's Irresistible.
Yeah, it really was that bad? Okay.
Well, I know because hearing people talk about it, they're like, well, and of course the end theme song is Simply Irresistible, man. And then the irresistible disappear in the title and it says resist. Get it, Bob?
I don't like that.
You get it?
Oh, that makes me want. I want to not vote now.
Yeah, just throw away all political content from political comedy content from 2016 to 2020. Just be
It's
like,
for
we're
the
done
best.
with it.
You know, an office gym. It's really cute that you think you're Paul Ryan and you like the CIA, but just be the smug guy looking at the camera like, derp.
You know, I guess the question is if there's going to be an Office remake or not. Is if Office Jim gets cast, and I don't want to call him by his real name. If Office Jim gets cast as Reed Richards or another Marvel character, then he's locked down in Marvel Town for a decade, so he couldn't do an Office reboot. But, you know, the Office ends with such a good ending. They basically had two finales to that show, the Michael Scott finale and then the real last episode.
I think they should debase themselves for our amusement.
I mean, some already are. They already are doing a podcast as debasing as it can get.
Who could do that with their lives? Disgusting. So we're back at the Hill House, and Hank tells Bobby it's safe to plug the TV back in, and Bobby never unplugged it. So, you know, dealing with those tube TVs, you can kill yourself just by touching the wrong thing. They carry so much electricity in them.
Ah, man, I love that Bobby realizes he almost killed his father accidentally.
He's like, okay.
He just has to mime. The little bit he mimes plugging it back in, the little motion to it is great. That, you know, the only big note I'd give on this episode is that Luann getting involved in show business in some way is in no way appealing to Bobby. He doesn't care one way or the other, which that's true, not the Bobby I know.
I guess Bobby is really sidelined in this episode.
Yeah. I mean, he's a little fat boy who plays his Game Boy. Like his main plot point is either talking about snacks or the Game Boy. That's one of two things.
He hasn't been fully figured out yet. Sometimes he is like the class clown. Sometimes he's just a lazy boy who wants to play Game Boy.
Yeah.
And Peggy has finished scotch guarding the couch. Scotch guarding, which I don't think... do people still do this? Let me know.
I don't know. I haven't ever done it. Maybe I should.
I have a washable slipcover because I have a cheap couch from IKEA.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You're a decade plus on that IKEA couch.
It's on its last legs, and I pray that I can move before it kills me.
You're only still on it because you don't want to buy a new couch before you eventually move.
And I don't want to pay people to take it out of my apartment. I can't do it myself. But so Peggy has finished cleaning the couch and tells Hank it'd be a lot easier if he just would tell Bill to not wipe his hands on the couch. And so they plan a zone defense around the chips.
Oh, that's so great. And that's why later he is wiping his hands on the couch because Peggy and Luann aren't there to block.
That's true.
Just again, Bill, they can't tell Bill not to be a messy slob, so they have to just plan around his ability to get crumbs on his hands.
I like his Peggy's like, won't he just scramble around the coffee table? He's like, he doesn't have that kind of quickness, Peggy. Not anymore.
Not anymore. He's reflecting that Bill is not the high school athlete he used to be.
He's not the bulldozer anymore.
The bulldozer, yeah.
So there's another deleted scene in which it makes Hank look like an asshole again. So they're cutting out all the scenes where Hank is a jerk. So when Peggy tells Hank, why don't you tell Bill to not wipe his hands on the couch? Instead of saying, let's plan our defense, he says, why don't I ask him to wipe his feet before coming in? Why don't I ask him to shower and brush his teeth? Why don't I just ask Dale to not smoke in our bedroom? And then he apologizes to Peggy. He's like, I'm under a lot of pressure. I'm sorry for yelling at you.
That is a real snap at her. I wouldn't have liked that because him being that mean to her, but the details are that like Bill is filthy and gross all the time. Like he stinks awful.
They're not, this early in the series, they're not ready to make Bill this disgusting. In a few years, he will be.
And that Dale not only smokes in the house, but that he goes into their bedroom, which when you're a guest at someone's house, unless the only times I've ever gone through someone's bedroom when I'm a guest in their house is they're like, oh, the other bathroom's not free. I guess just go through the bedroom and use that bathroom. Otherwise, you're not supposed to go in someone's bedroom when you're a guest.
I think it's implied that Hank asks Dale to go outside. Instead of going outside, he just goes in another room and smokes cigarettes.
Totally.
Yeah.
God, he thinks like, oh, I'm getting away with it. Yeah.
Luann comes out and asks Peggy to move her car out of the garage because it's practice time for her puppet show. And Luann tells Hank that she wrote a role for him, and it's God.
Yeah, who she describes as the greatest hero of them all, which is not like God. God controls everything. He's not the hero. It's funny to say that about God, not Jesus, but God.
Yeah. And one thing I didn't mention earlier is during the first sketch is that it's also like a joke about bad writing in that Hank is the Deus Ex Machina character. And it's perfect for him to play God because he just shows up and solves the problem with no setup at all.
Oh my God.
That is why it's so perfectly about bad writing. It's because he is the God character and that he just comes out of nowhere to solve the problem at the end.
Oh, Bob, thank you.
Aren't I so smart?
Oh, man, that is such a great, that instead of having a person give her the note that in the original, in the first thing she did, Hank showing up to solve all their problems was, stylistically the Deus Ex Machina. But then Luann, her lesson was, I should have just made that literally God who literally solves everything.
She must be thinking, storytelling is easy. Just have God show up and fix the problem. And that's what her Manger Babies, episodic structure will be. Like they'll get into a problem, then God will show up and fix it.
Oh, that's so good, man. This is such a smart parody of storytelling stuff. I love that so much. Like it's not all in your face. That sounds like a snide comedy writer saying my job's actually really hard, And
it's also again quietly sacrilegious because Hank is literally playing God and dressing up as God.
I love that both Hank and Peggy seemingly are offended at these ideas, and then they're like, no, that's great. Like how when Bobby compares himself to Jesus, Peggy is only mad. She's like, don't assume that. Let Luann cast you as Jesus if she does.
Let's hear Hank playing God.
God?
Sure. You were great as the hero of my last show, so I figured, why not have you play the greatest hero of them all?
Tell you what, Luann, just as soon as I finish turning beer into water, I'll meet you in the garage.
Great.
She made me God.
Hey, if you're God, I guess that makes me Jesus.
Bobby, honey, you really shouldn't say that. That is for Luann to decide.
Let there be light. And it was good.
Yeah, that's super, Uncle Hank, but can we get back to the script? We're at the part where you meet your arch enemy.
Bobby's G.I. Joe?
Joe Six-Pack. Now, he's a drunk driver who died in a car crash and was sent to hell. And then he borrowed Satan's pickup truck without asking and trashed it, so he got kicked out of hell. And now he roams the earth riding buses and doing evil, like he won't call you on your birthday and he throws beer bottles at your head.
What? He crashed a truck? You will feel my wrath. Ha, 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 ha.
That's got to be a Beavis and Butthead reference, right?
Yes, yeah.
The way he laughs like that, there's no other reason why they would end the scene on that laughter.
Totally,
that kind of laughter.
Totally. And also how he says, and it was good. Like that definitely sounds like a Butthead pronouncement.
A come to Butthead style.
Yeah. But like you hinted at before, Joe Sixpack is her dad.
Definitely, yeah.
It's just
where
the descriptor of not calling you on your birthday and throwing beer bottles at your head.
Those are the two evil things he does.
Yes, yeah. And then also that Hank is most offended that he crashed a truck. Like that's so wasteful. And I love the posing on Luann with the puppets on her hand, but she's in full Hollywood producer posture of like script in like now the script says here. Like that's great.
Hank is offended that he crashed the devil's pickup truck, though.
Yeah. Which, like, isn't that good? Shouldn't you want to destroy the devil's pickup truck? Sounds like Joe Sixpack, the ends justify the means there, I'd say.
So Hank comes out into the alley with his God beard still on, and Dale wants to know what Grandpa's throwing out, the money he poured into the Social Security system. And he explains to everybody how he's playing God, and Bill is asking God who's going to win the Super Bowl. And Dale points out it was filmed 6 months ago in the same hangar where they filmed the moon landing. And that's probably the first time I heard anything about that conspiracy theory.
I think so.
There's no mention of Kubrick, which was what would become that conspiracy theory. Like Stanley Kubrick filmed the moon landing, and there are references to it in The Shining.
I remember in the probably right after this, like Fox did a special of was the moon landing faked, and then they disprove a bunch of the main arguments of it at the time. And I just remember it because after it aired, I went to my art class at high school, and the art teacher, who was a very nerdy art lover. One of the other students was like, I just watched this moon landing thing last night. You know it's all faked. And then the teacher goes off on like a 10-minute tangent of like, people have been trying to say it's fake for 30 years. It is not fake. I have all this proof. And I was like, whoa, you touched a raw nerve with that fake moon landing thing.
From what I've heard, the latest film, Godzilla vs. King Kong, confirms the Hollow Earth theory, though.
It does.
That is correct.
Yeah.
It's actually real.
The podcaster in that film, it proves that he's on old conspiracies though. So he's a conspiracy podcaster, but he talks about like, fluoride in the water and stuff like that and faking the moon landing. I was like, you are 800 conspiracies ago.
This is like
for this movie.
Where Joe Rogan started.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
10 years ago.
If you watch ancient Joe Rogan comedy, he's talking about false flags or whatever. It's like, that is so 1999. That also the podcaster in that movie. Look, there's some cheap jokes about podcasting for sure. But if you haven't seen the movie yet, skip ahead 10 seconds. But his last line in the movie is asking someone to be a guest on his podcast. And I have to say that was very correct.
That's how I'm going out.
Yeah.
So in response to that moon landing quip, Boomhauer babbles something about Capricorn 1, which is a movie I've heard of in passing, but I didn't know what it was about. And so it's a 1978 thriller about faking a Mars landing. O.J. Simpson is in it. And the story goes that these guys are about to go off to Mars, these astronauts, but then at the last second, they're pulled off the shuttle. There's something wrong with it. For the sake of America, we have to fake this now.
Wow.
So that is what the entire movie is about. I've never seen it. It sounds fun. But yeah, that's Capricorn 1.
Wow. Okay. I like that in Boomhauer's mumbling, he both is complimenting the film Capricorn 1, but also says, obviously it's fake and that you have to respect Neil Armstrong. I love that.
And there is a joke in which Bill's hygiene is called into question because he's like, only 4 more days till the Super Bowl. And then Hank says, no, it's 3 days. And he pulls off his one shirt that says 4 days till the Super Bowl, and there's one under it that says 3 days till the Super Bowl he's wearing. So
implying that he's probably wearing 4 shirts at once then, at least for the 4 countdown.
And leaving them on.
Yeah. Do you think he started the week with 7 shirts on and he's been slowly peeling them away?
I think so. And they're just not commenting on it.
And also, Bill doesn't know it's 4 days until he looks down at his shirt and says it's only 4 days.
That's how he's keeping track of time now. So in our next clip, Luann gets her big break.
God's not angry on that line. He's vengeful. Let's try it again.
Luann, it's the TV station.
Hello? Mm-hmm.
Oh, Hank, look how excited she is. Just a few days ago, she was talking like the world was coming to an end. You're a good man.
Man?
We did it! Channel 84 is putting Manger babies on the air. It's UHF, Uncle Hank. Ultra high frequency.
Oh, Luann, you have thrust your hands into something wonderful this time.
We better get back to work. We've got a whole hour to fill on Sunday.
Well, that doesn't give us much time to get ready. I mean, Sunday is... Sunday? Now, is that before or after the Super Bowl?
During. Can you believe it? They put us on against the highest rated television event of the year because they know we're the one show that can beat it. It's a huge responsibility, but I know I could do it. With God on my side.
That's great. Yeah, and I like, again, the low stakes of the show, sorry if I keep repeating myself, is that the big break for Luann is getting aired on a UHF station, a Christian puppet show during the Super Bowl. I think it's assumed that they don't know who Luann is, just say, oh, this is the least advertised portion in our entire schedule, just let her do whatever she wants.
Yeah, it's like, it may as well not happen. No one will watch this, so screw it, just put her there, who cares? Yeah.
And UHF, by the way, these are all forgotten things because broadcast TV is gone forever now after the changeover, but UHF, ultra high frequency, a lower tier than VHF, I believe. And that means that with UHF stations, the signal did not go as far, which is why the Weird Al movie UHF is meant to imply it's a low frequency TV station that does not go a lot of places.
Unpopular and not watched.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was barely, the meaning of that title was barely known at the time. It wasn't known in overseas either. So they had to call that, I think in like France and other territories, it was called the Vidiot or the Vidiot from UHF. And now the title is meaningless. But you have to just know that UHF means like it's a low powered broadcast station. It's not getting to a lot of places.
My favorite parts of UHF are when it had has the local TV show energy to it. That movie, otherwise, the parts where it's like, oh, now it's just like a parody of a movie, or like Weird Al's character has a Donahue show on it. I'm like, that kind of gets away from the spirit of UHF. But when they have the twin guys who look like Popeye going, that feels like UHF.
One of those guys is married to Bette Midler.
What?
Yes.
Wow. I did not know
It's a real comedy act, and it's very weird.
Man, that is so...
The Kipper Kids. The Kipper Kids.
Wow, man.
I can go off of it. This is not even related to UHF, but I just hearing UHF, I think of the movie Sex with Furniture. What do you think?
Yeah.
That's the Donahue segment. Or Geraldo Rivera or Morton Downey show.
I like when he crushes the head of the KKK guy. Like, it just collapses the hood. Yeah. But that Luann thinks ultra high frequency means it's the best. She's like, yeah, it's the best ultra high frequency. And also, I feel like that is in a joke about giving a line reading, like, no, he's not angry there, he's vengeful. Like, I bet Brittany has been told, like, no, Luann in this scene is sad, she's not mournful or whatever.
She's naive, she's not stupid.
Yes, yeah. I think that's probably her goofing on line read she had been given by Greg Daniels.
So we come back for this last act, and Hank is coming in very sheepish about, letting her down, and she realizes her octopus only has 6 legs, but is reluctant to call him a sextopus because it would offend sensibilities.
So funny how she says, offend sensibilities. Yeah, that's so good.
And he's really skirting around this whole thing. So Hank goes, oh, I'm sure you'll figure it out before Super Sunday. I call it Super Sunday because that's when they play the Super Bowl. This Sunday.
Yeah.
Clearly not understanding any of it. And this is when he backs out of the show completely.
Oh, poor Luann. She's just destroyed. This is, as far as she cares, this is God forsaking her. This is the one father figure she's ever liked or has been supportive to her too in this version of the show, and he's just pulling away. She's just broken and you feel so bad for her there.
And I like that Hank is also feeling bad about this. He's not just like, whatever, Luann, I'm going to do my thing now. And because she asked him, are you not going to be there? He's like, oh no, I'm not saying that. There could be a terrorist attack. Yeah. Or what was the other excuse he gives? Oh, it could end early due to injury. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. But the Super Bowl always runs a long time. I don't think anything has ever stopped it before. Maybe weather once, but
it is nice to be. The Hank is not so callous that he's like, yeah, I'm abandoning you. Shut up. I'm leaving. He's just like, well, no, I'm not actually doing this. He feels too much guilt to actually say, like, no, I am leaving you for this party.
Well, poor Luann, another like father figure, is just lying to her of just like, well, no, I'm not really backing out because what if it did end early? Then I'm going. So it's not so bad. It's like, no, you're lying. Just say, at least have the guts, Hank, to tell her you're not doing it.
And we come back to the kitchen, and Hank is now testing out his chip snapping potential of this dip that he's making. And
that's a good job.
Hank is a real nerd. I buy pre-made chip dip, and I just got some. I buy chip dip like once a year, but I must recommend the hell of a good chip dip. It's great.
Okay.
The potato chip dip is great.
That sounds good. I also like to find out Peggy bets on football.
Oh, no, this is a golf tournament. I'll go more into it after this next clip.
Okay.
Don't you think I want to miss the Super Bowl? No, sir. I've got enough money on this game to cover the bath I took on the Dinah Shore Classic. But I will sit through that puppet show because Luann asked me to.
Come on. I'll be God some other time, like Easter. That's during baseball season. Who cares?
Hank, Luann believes in you. How can you allow suffering in her world when you have the power to prevent it?
Suffering is a part of every religion, Peggy. I mean, look at what the Jews have been through, and you never hear them complaining.
So all very good jokes.
All
Dinah Shore Classic was a women's golf tournament that started in 1972, and it's now called the ANA Inspiration. And Dinah Shore was an early television entertainer. I believe she was on the radio as well, and she was one of the first like professional women golfers.
Yes, yeah. She the ANA. I looked that up too. It's like that is the Japanese airline. Like it's.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's interesting that they are paying for what is. I mean it is the longest, I believe it's the oldest women's golf tournament in the world.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's had several names, but at this point it was still Dinah Shore Classic. I think in 2002 it was renamed.
Also, it's funny that Peggy is into that because this was not public knowledge at the time. I only learned it from, knowing about gay things, but it is also a major destination for lesbian tourists.
Lesbian golfers?
Yes, yeah.
What?
It was called the biggest gathering of women who love women the world over. There's an episode of The L Word that was just about going to Dinosaur Week. It's an entire week of things you do around the Dinosaur Classic, though, of course, not promoted by the dinosaur people, because they really want to deny that some women who play sports might be gay. But yeah, I found out that it was known as one of the lesbian hotspots around the world.
Okay,
So,
I did not know
yes.
that. Dinosaur also sounds like dinosaur, and that's pretty fun.
Yeah, that is fun.
I like that.
Maybe the lesbians just like dinosaurs.
They all should. So this next joke I feel like is too similar to a Simpsons joke that did it better, in that they're standing for the singing of the national anthem in their living room. So it's very, very funny that they're actually standing in their living room for the national anthem.
Yeah, they respect the flag that much that even while no one's watching but just their friends. And I especially think, why would Dale care about America? But
he takes his hat off, I think.
Yeah.
They all crack their beers when it's over, but you find out they were betting on the national anthem, and it went on for 3 minutes and 40 seconds. So in The Simpsons, it's another joke about how singers embellish the national anthem.
Yeah. And then it was Boomhauer who won, too. He got the pile of money. I also love the bit that Hank doesn't not like baseball, but from a gambling or intensity of sports thing, April baseball is kind of meaningless. Really, it doesn't matter until you're August, I think, with baseball.
And from what I know about baseball is that there are a lot of games. In football, there are way fewer games, and they all seem very important because you can't actually play a lot of football games because it destroys your body.
Yeah, meanwhile, if you go to a baseball game, if your team loses, you don't even think they blew it for the season. You just go well, that was one game out of 100 or whatever. Who cares? They could still get in the World Series. The biggest danger I have going to baseball games is if I stay to the 9th inning, it usually ties, and then I'm just one more inning, and it just turns into this test. And then the last time I stuck around until they finally ended the tie at inning 14, they lost anyway. I was God, so I got to stay here an extra hour to see them lose.
Getting old is all about being done with an event about 75% of the way through it. Just you know what? I got this band's music at home, and this triple encore is really killing my back. Let's get out of here.
Yeah. Well, also, you got to beat that traffic, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Especially
true.
When I've gone to games in Oakland or shows in Oakland, it's just if I don't try to beat the traffic, it's me and every other person who was in that theater at the BART station all waiting for once 4 different trains, I'll finally be able to get on this. Yeah.
So Peggy comes out with Luann, and they're about to go to the TV station, and she's wearing her boggle jacket, which seems very hard to animate, which is why it doesn't come back that often.
Oh, that's fun, though. She's it's a little cold. I'll put on my boggle jacket.
And she tells Hank to enjoy the Selfish Bowl. And then they're at the TV station, and Peggy is helping Luann get ready, and Peggy has a feeling Hank won't show up, so she's trying to let Luann down easy and saying, if Hank isn't here, it doesn't mean the world's a bad place. And Luann goes, oh, yes, it does.
I love that.
So just very matter-of-factly just saying, oh, yeah, this will confirm for me. It's all riding on this, and this is the point in the story where you have to think, this is when Peggy decides, I have to go fuck with Hank, or else Luann will lose all faith in the world. So Peggy is the hero of the story, unsung.
Absolutely, yeah. She is the visible hand of God moving all this around. I mean, I love how she just has given up. Peggy had said earlier, oh, I thought, I'm so happy for this. I thought she'd thought there's nothing good in the world. And now she's seeing that Luann thinks that once more. And, I don't think she thinks Luann will self-harm, but she will at the very least make terrible decisions in her life because it's who cares?
She does not need the cruelty of the word confirmed to her anymore. The cruelty of the world, sorry. So there's a deleted scene in this, a deleted bit in that Luann goes on a bit further. Just the joke about Luann not being very bright. And she says, oh yeah, Uncle Hank is testing my faith and I've got the patience of Job. So she says Job instead of Job, and that's the joke. It's a little too the first drafty for this kind of character choice.
Yeah, that's all. It's also too dumb. I think so.
I think so. So we go back to the Hill House. Bill wipes his hand on the couch, and we see him get up to use the bathroom, and there's just like big stains where his hands were.
I do like he celebrates it like, I made it to the commercials. Like he had successfully held in his bodily needs until the commercials.
And Dale, when Bill gets up to use the bathroom, there's a deleted scene in which Dale tells Bill that right now 200 million Americans are headed to the bathroom and no sewer system can handle that. And he says, in 60 seconds, there will be a backflush of apocalyptic proportions.
That's good. I like that.
And Bill's response is, one more flush will make a difference. It's just like voting. So
that's funny. I like that.
They should have kept that in. What we do get is Hank Hill saying, what do Tina Turner's legs have to do with auto insurance? And I don't know if that was a reference to a commercial. I couldn't find it, but I do know that Tina Turner's legs were insured. It's like one of those things like,
yes.
her fingernails are insured by Lloyd's of London, like one of those stories you hear.
That's
her
right.
legs were insured.
Okay, I do remember that story now. So that must be then just a joke of like, for the Super Bowl this year, the insurance company is advertising that with her legs.
Mm-hmm.
That's instead, by the 2000 or so, insurance companies just had the ads that were like completely meaningless, of just like a whale and a bird fly.
This fun lizard is here to talk to you, and here's Flo, right?
Oh yes,
she's here too.
That's true. Yeah, though Tina Turner in 2000 would perform at the Super Bowl halftime show. So, these jokes about Super Bowl commercials, they couldn't imagine how much crazier Super Bowl commercials would be.
No, it's like the return of all your favorite IP now, right?
Yes. Oh God, yes. Yeah. This year,
Marty, we got to get DirecTV, Marty. It's a great deal.
Yeah, this year featured Big Bird and Wayne and Garth telling us
God.
about ordering out. Yep. And
please, I can't. Big Bird, just lock him up. It's over.
And also I remember the Bud Light did an Avengers Endgame, but for characters who were in Bud Light commercials. Like it was all of the Bud Light characters assemble who were ever in a Bud Light commercial. Cedric the Entertainer, the guy on the telephone, the Boba Fett looking guy. They're all here.
You know, I missed like 20 years worth of Super Bowl commercials, so I'm kind of behind on these character rosters.
I watched a handful of them. Every year I like to stay in the know. Did you see the one this year, Bob, of the Edward Scissorhands Jr. commercial?
No.
Oh man.
No.
Well, they got Winona Ryder back, but not Johnny Depp.
And, I heard about this, but I
Yes.
didn't want to see it because I love that movie. I just rewatched it over the holidays. I still love it a lot. It makes me cry like a baby. Please continue. Sorry.
Well, did you see who plays Junior in it?
Oh, God.
I think it's good casting. It's Timothy Chalamet.
Sure.
He's the Johnny Depp of now and none of the baggage. He's just a cute little boy who had no problems in wine addiction.
What part of the movie do they ruin?
Well, basically they live on the same street they used to live in, and she talks about how now that they have a kid, but the Edward Sr. is nowhere to be seen. He needs car insurance or a safe car to drive with his scissor hands.
No, the point of the movie is that he cannot be accepted because society is too cruel, and he makes it snow for everybody, and it's beautiful, and she becomes an old woman, and she marries somebody else because he's too pure for this world.
Well, unfortunately, that's not that. Then the non-canonical commercial then takes that away. I guess. Yeah,
it sucks. So back to this. So this is when the TV starts going on the fritz, and we go back to Nancy's channel. She's talking about the weather and the upcoming premiere of the Manger Babies, and Dale is very upset by this. And he says, if I wanted to spend Super Bowl Sunday staring at my wife, I would have married Fran Tarkington.
That's a funny line. And Fran Tarkington's a great name. I also, they don't mention it enough. Hank should be saying like, oh, my TV's on the fritz, because he's been repairing it all episode. They don't really connect it to him thinking like, oh, my TV's shorting out because I've been fixing it and clearly something's wrong.
I think maybe they just trust the viewer enough to be like, well, Hank has been repairing his TV for like half the show, so this could be a result of that.
They leave it to you to assume. Yeah.
And we go back to the studio, and Hank is praying, and a man comes up behind her and taps her on the shoulder. She thinks it's Hank, but it's actually the stage manager telling her she's on in 5.
Oh, that's so. Uncle Hank. Oh. And then also like that she was praying 5 seconds before she's about to go on the air. I like that too.
And we're cutting back and forth to the station and to the studio, and they cut back to the Hill House, and they miss the touchdown, but Bill's happy they get to see the end zone dance. He kind of mimes it a bit.
His hair goes to the wrong color during that dance.
It does?
It's a lighter shade of brown. Yeah.
And Hank swears he's not the one doing this, and we get some more Manger Babies in our next clip.
Come on,
on, Manger babies. I'll give you a ride. We don't need it. God is the designated driver tonight. God doesn't care about you. How can you say that? God does care, and he will show it.
This is getting old, Hank.
It's not me. It's this damn remote control. Bill must have dripped crumbs in it or something.
Maybe God had a flat tire or...
What the hell is going on?
All I know is this is the part of the movie where I start thinking, why don't they just get out of the house?
Don't be an idiot, Luann.
Huh?
God's not coming. He's watching the Super Bowl. Now get in.
Yeah, we better do what he says. Yeah.
Well, he is our only ride.
Luann, no! Don't get in the car!
Oh, that's so... I mean, first off, I think Luann is definitely doing an impersonation of her father.
Oh, for
Joe's
sure.
Lines.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't care about you. Oh, and God, just the way he's like, she says, he is her only ride. Like, that's the justifications he's probably made of like, well, he is my only ride out of here about some guy she dated.
And Luann is very thinly disguising God as Hank because she's not even trying. She's like, well, God isn't here because he's watching the Super Bowl. And maybe God got a flat tire on the way over here.
What are the children in the... At least she's doing it in front of children, but like, what are they thinking with all this?
It's funny to think of this as her doing this in front of children because at this point, the Manger babies are in the car with Joe Sixpack. She's moving it back and forth. And one of them says, I think it's the donkey. He says, if God doesn't get here soon, we're all going to die. And then Lord Featherbottom says, maybe it's best that we do die. Who wants to live in a world without God?
Oh, God.
And that's when she tells Joe Sixpack to point the car at the oncoming headlights. So there's going to be like a mass suicide of Manger babies in front of these children. And she's telling the kids there's no God.
Yeah.
So it's going to warp all of these children if Hank doesn't get there as well. That's what also is at stake here.
The cuts to all the kids watching it are just like, what? Like, it's great that Joe Sixpack in her story doesn't just go to be a drunk guy who threatens your life by driving with him, but they're just now accepting, like, then just kill me. I want to die.
There's
like,
no God. I don't want to live in this world. Let's have a violent, gory death.
To hear Featherbottom, especially the characters like, live in a world without God.
So in our next very long clip, the episode wraps up.
Oh, my God.
Yes, I have come.
Oh, thank you, Uncle. Lord, we never stop believing in you.
The Manger baby's faith has been rewarded. You are all saved. And as for you, Joe Sixpack, anyone who drinks and drives is a real jackass.
Hey!
So, Hank, how does it feel doing the right thing?
Pretty good, I guess. Of course, not as good as getting to watch the end of the Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl's always a blowout. This puppet show, it was a real knuckle-biter.
Oh, my Lord, it's Troy Aikman.
What are you doing here, son? Sir?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. Some guys were snapping towels in the locker room, so I went to Bible study to get some perspective on it. And I saw a flyer for this puppet show. Sort of a little miracle, I guess.
You know, it was kind of a miracle that brought me here, too. You see, I was watching my TV, and it started flipping channels.
Mom, I hope you don't mind, but I borrowed the batteries from your remote control.
What remote control? I don't have a remote control.
Sure you do, in your purse. The universal remote that can change the channel on any brand of television. I borrowed the batteries for my Game Boy.
When?
Before the Super Bowl.
But if the remote had no batteries, how did I?
Or after the Super Bowl. I don't remember.
It's a very Greg Daniels ending of going like, or it was after and there is no miracle.
That Troy Aikman thing is very funny because it feels like, I don't know the story behind this, but it feels like Fox was like, guys, we got you Troy Aikman. You got to put him in your Super Bowl show. And then Greg Daniels was like, yeah, we'll do that. And it amounts to just a weird celebrity thing where celebrities really just walk on. And it's like, wow, it's Troy Aikman. But I like how underplayed it is and how he should not be there for any reason.
Yeah, he calls it a miracle because it's impossible that he would be there. There's no reason and it's only so they could say like, and the Super Bowl's on Fox, and we've got Troy Aikman on King of the Hill. Get ready for the Super Bowl. I also like when he says, I was double checking this on the scoreboards here, when he says, it's always a blowout. The 3 times his Cowboys won the Super Bowl, they were blowouts. He, like the first time he won the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 27, it was 52-17. So the Cowboys really skunked him there. But,
I didn't know that.
So when he says they're always a blowout, that's him joking about how usually lots of people after the first half would go in his games would say, well, the Cowboys are obviously winning. Who cares? I'm not watching the rest of this game. I got other things to do.
We were talking about it before the show, but a very funny line that you have to think about is that when so before Hank shows up, Luann is just like, okay, God, there's no God, let's all die together.
Yes.
And then Hank shows up and she says, I've always believed in you. I never stopped believing in you, which is contradictory to what just happened in the show.
Everything that has happened this entire time, she's like, oh, I never stopped believing in you. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Also, the Troy Aikman was activated by seeing like locker room horseplay. He's like, oh, that felt strange. I need to talk to my minister about it. He's now Troy Aikman, I was looking up, I don't know how religious he is, but I do know he's now married to like the ex-wife of the nephew of Jerry Jones who owns the Cowboys.
Wow.
It's a very incestuous
that's complicated
group there. Yeah.
And I think that if this was written maybe a year later, or maybe in season 4 even, that Peggy could not resist taking credit for this.
Absolutely.
And the line that I would write if I was writing this was her saying, Hank, Peggy Hill works in mysterious ways.
Yes, yeah.
That's my punch up for this. But hey, Peggy's too meek. I think she's too humble. She would be so proud of herself for setting all of this up.
Season 2 Peggy's not proud enough of herself.
Yeah.
Like she is more about working silently. She should be trying to take credit. It's not until the episode we did for What a Cartoon is Sleeping Dogs that Peggy has really becomes the very full of herself and kind of clueless person that she is.
There's a bit of the pride in this, in that she is kind of like she's virtue signaling kind of in a way when she's like, I am going to this thing because Luann asked me and I'm a good person.
That's right. Yeah, she is doing it to rub it in Hank's face that he isn't doing it. Yeah, and that he could easily do it but won't.
And there's an alternate ending of this that I found confusing, in that in the way that it is just now is that Bobby says he removed the batteries from the remote and then the clouds part. And when Peggy asks him, when did you take out the batteries? He says, but before the Super Bowl or after, I don't remember, the clouds come back together.
Oh.
In the alternate ending, it's different. It's that the cloud stuff doesn't happen at all. After Bobby says, I don't remember, that's when the clouds part. And you hear the creaking of machinery. I don't really get it. Maybe it's pointing out the artifice of the story.
Maybe.
I don't really understand it. I understand why it was cut because I was just confused. So in the final script, in the final airing, the clouds part when you think it's a miracle, then they come back together when it clearly wasn't. In the deleted scene, the clouds part at the end after Bobby says, I don't remember, and then you hear the creaking of machinery. So I don't understand.
For a late edit like that, I think that's a real improvement in it. That also isn't super obvious, too. Like, there's not as obvious as some of the 80-yard line. There's a couple times in here I'm like, oh, Hank's mouth moves a little weird there, or so does Luann. Though I think the mouth charts on King of the Hill characters are so much more subtle than Simpsons characters that it's not as obvious.
Their mouths are not 30% of their head like they are on The Simpsons.
Also
so
that,
you can easily you can cheat a lot better than you can with the giant maws of The Simpsons.
I want to believe that it was Bobby took them out after, and that that there was no God. But hey, I guess it's up to you, the listener, whether you believe in God or not.
Peggy was the God of this episode. Yeah. All hail Peggy.
But yeah, it was a really fun episode, just about like making things and making fun of bad writing, but not being so like up its own ass in the meta-ness of it. Like, and just tour de force by Brittany Murphy does like 6 voices in her Luann voice. It's incredible.
And Manger babies don't go away. They come back occasionally. Like, Luann will go through some things. She will be in beauty school for a bit, then she'll go to college, and that won't work out. Like, there are different phases of Luann, and then she moves out, but Manger babies are constant, and so there will be more Manger babies in the future for her.
Oh, yeah. I love that they use this bit here of Nancy getting her on TV to then use that as a launching point of Nancy feeling inferior to Luann when she starts taking off as the new hot thing at the TV station.
And yeah, that was our Talking of the Hill Season 2 Part 1 miniseries. We got through 11 episodes, and it's so great. And you know what? The show only gets better, and we can't wait to do more. We probably will do more next year.
Yeah, I can't wait to start the true ramp up to the Megalomart finale. Yeah, but going through this, like spotting so many of the things they're building up to, and all of these like internal references, and also like most episodes touched me a lot deeper than I remembered they did. Like this made me feel like season 2 of King of the Hill just is, other than a few things like Peggy and Bobby aren't fully themselves yet, but season 2 is pretty much King of the Hill as we know it.
And it looks so much better than season 1. We've said it before,
yes.
And you can hear that in our Wes Archer interview. They whipped everyone into shape after season 1.
Oh yeah, they figured out both in the LA offices and overseas at ACOM. They figured out a whole lot of things for season 2. Yeah, and that's also been a great thing this season of doing it, that we also got to interview Wes Archer and ask him so many of the questions that came up in our research about King of the Hill too.
But yeah, thank you so much to all of our patrons for supporting us. We could not do any of this without you. And please stay tuned. Again, there is so much more happening behind the Patreon paywall for $5 a month, including monthly Talking Futurama and early access and any kind of interviews that we do. We'll go there first, and special bonus stuff. Who knows what's happening next, but it's all happening on the Patreon. So please stay tuned. And again, the next big miniseries is coming at you in the fall, and we'll be talking about that more as we get into the later summer months.
So thank you so much again, all you supporters, and we look forward to you hearing us on the next mini-series.
And before we go, I did want to say a special thank you to our podcast editor for this series, Alan. He's done such a great job on this, and we couldn't put out so many podcasts without great editors like Alan. So thank you so much again to Alan for doing such a great job on this podcast. And as for the rest of you, we will see you again very soon for another podcast episode. Thanks again for listening, y'all.
Well, maybe we ought to ask God who's going to win the Super Bowl.
Going to win. The game was pre-taped 6 months ago in the same Nevada hangar where they faked the moon landing.
Yeah, man, it's like that dang old Capricorn 1, man. It's a good movie, but, you know, they ain't gonna fake no stand on the ground like that if they do. They don't Neil Armstrong.
Grandma, can I have the chocolate chips?
This secret recipe moment made possible by Emory Heart and Vascular Center. When Grandma needed heart care, she came to Emory. The difference? Emory Healthcare performs more heart procedures annually than anyone else in Georgia, which means better outcomes for our patients. And we offer advanced and personalized treatments developed by our top specialists that others don't. Like Grandma knows, where you start your heart care matters. Smart Cookie. EmoryHealthcare.org/smartcookie.
The first taste of rare bourbon you finally got your hands on. That's nice. At Caskers.com, we make this experience easy. Caskers is a one-stop spirit curator with an impressive selection of exclusive, sought-after, rare, and household names in the realm of premium spirits and champagne. Discover the top flavors of the year now by going to Caskers.com and using code WELCOME10 for $10 off your first purchase. Get $10 off your first purchase with code WELCOME10 at Caskers.com.